Hey, it's Travis. I wanted to take this moment to discuss our sponsor, BetterHelp. I used to think talking to a therapist was a sign of weakness, until I started talking to one. It has really helped me limit the negative chatter that can infiltrate my brain. Therapy has helped me become a more insightful person, father, and husband. That's why I'm excited to tell you about BetterHelp. Their online platform makes finding a therapist incredibly easy. Fill out a brief questionnaire and you will be matched with a therapist in just a few days. Go to betterhelp.com/thank you notes, betterhelp.com/thank you notes, or click the link in my show notes. In doing so, you will be helping this show and you will receive 10% off your first month. If you aren't clicking with your therapist, if you're not getting a good vibe, BetterHelp will allow you to switch your therapist at any time with no additional cost. Online therapy is a game changer for me. I have such an erratic schedule. I work nights, weekends, late, early, holidays, you name it. Being able to video call my therapist from my phone in a call room, at work, or in my car, or whatever, it's extremely convenient for me, and it allows me the time and the place to actually get my therapy in. So if you're struggling, if you need to talk to somebody, go to betterhelp.com/thank you notes and they'll get you set up with somebody. This has been my thank you note to BetterHelp for supporting this show. Hi, welcome to the Thank You Notes podcast. My name is Travis McVeigh. I'm an anesthesiologist from Dallas, Texas. I love thank you notes so much, I decided to make them into a podcast. My guest today is Dr. Donna Corriel. A while back, she left bedside medicine for entrepreneurship. She is the founder of SoMeDocs, or Doctors on Social Media. She helps doctors cultivate a presence online in order to gain an audience and win back their independence from a broken medical system. We talk about gratitude, we talk about betting on yourself, and how she started all of this. And at the end, we swap a few inspirational quotes. It's a great talk. I very much appreciate her sitting down with me, so let's get to my talk with Dr. Donna Corriel.
About as good as it gets anymore.
Donna, thank you for joining us on the Thank You Notes podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about thank you notes. I do write thank you notes, but they're not necessarily traditional thank you notes. I don't necessarily, get a present and then write like a physical thank you note. I think we've shifted as a society. So a lot of my thank you messages are texts, they're phone calls, but I do sometimes write actual physical notes in unexpected ways. So I do appreciate a really nice handwritten thank you note.
You're going to have to elaborate on that. What is a written thank you note in a non-traditional way?
Well, what I mean is that traditionally when people get gifts, like you have a birthday party, and so you'll sort of write a thank you note for the presents, right? That's sort of what we think about when we think of actual thank you notes. But I like to sort of sometimes write thank you notes unexpectedly, let's say to a friend, just for being a friend. Nothing specific, like a gift she's given me. I like to write a note just because, they're my friend. So I think that that's a bit more non-traditional. And then, of course, we live in a world that's online. So another non-traditional thing to do is, to write a thank you via text message, just because physical notes don't always get to the person very quickly nowadays. So.
Very true. I like that. What was the last thank you note you wrote, traditional or non-traditional?
I think the last thank you that I sent out was probably to my son. It was not a physical note. It was a message, and it was, thanking him for just being really wonderful. We just dropped him off at college at his university for his sophomore year, and it's intimidating. He's transferring in, and it's a really great university. And so I think there's an intimidation factor. So I sent him a note to just remind him how wonderful he is and to thank him for being my son. And I hope that made a difference, at least in his day.
That's really nice. My mom would drop a note like that to me every once in a while. I was growing up, and I kept those notes. They meant a lot, and they still mean a lot. So that was very nice of me.
That's so nice. Well, that makes me feel good.
How many sons do you have?
So I have 3 sons.
3 sons. Are they thank you note writers?
No. I think that they follow the path of the traditional younger generation where everything is sort of, very quick and Snapchatty, where you're sort of taking a snap of yourself doing everything and anything during the day and you're sort of sending it over. So I think that when they do say thank you to friends, and any communication for that matter, it's done via the visual and just that quick 24-hour turnaround. No, they're not. That said, I do ask them to write notes sometimes, especially when it's someone's birthday and they have to wish them a happy birthday.
Thank you, snaps. I may need to get into that.
That's right. I'm not into it either. We both need to.
Well, we're doing a special or a series here on thank you notes, and we're thanking the people that trained us, thanking our mentors from our training. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your training. Where did you train?
Yeah, my internal medicine residency was at Albert Einstein's Montefiore Division in the Bronx, New York.
Mm-hmm. And did you have a mentor there or somebody that impacted your training?
I didn't have a specific mentor, and here's why. My residency is sort of a blur because I became pregnant when I was an intern. My husband and I became pregnant and had my child when I was still an intern. So it really was sort of a blur. And I don't think that I had a traditional residency, at least from that sense, because I was juggling not only the sleepless nights and all of the really busy hours, but I was also juggling how to take care of a baby and, how do I get it done and being woken up in hours where I should be sleeping, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one person that stands out to me from residency. I actually wrote about him and never published it. And that's Dr. Jerry Passione. He was the lead of what was called Firm 3. The residency program was split up into 3 firms. I'm not sure that they still do that, but Firm 3 was sort of like the social medicine firm. And Dr. Jerry Passione was known as just being a very passionate man who could be a bit intimidating during the rounds, especially when you presented. But I actually thank him. And that was what I wrote, is a thank you note for helping me learn how to present better. He was a stickler for doing it the right way, putting the words in the right place, and really getting to the point when you present. And I do think that it's relevant even to today, where I'm now non-clinical and non-traditional, and I'm pitching my entrepreneurial venture. I always have him in the back of my head, with his little comments on how it should be done better.
Yeah, I read notes now in my own practice, and people don't know how to present patients and don't know how to write the notes, and they're not pointing you towards their diagnosis. It's just kind of a word salad explosion, throw everything against the wall. And that really is an art form. And I was thankful for the people that took a interest in teaching people how to do that.
Yeah, me too. And, some of that is probably the result of the EMR system, which sort of almost dictates to us what we are going to say. And so there's pluses and minuses to that. Obviously, the pluses is that it can really help you to structure your presentation, and it can help you to lead you exactly in how to write, much as AI does. But the negative is that there's no sort of passion and there's no hand touch put into it. And we have lost the art of presenting. I really love the art of presenting. And that was part of presenting that was probably one of the most challenging things, but also one of the most rewarding things, because you see that when you communicate well, it's just so much easier to come up with a diagnosis.
Absolutely. Let's get into your story. We talked about your residency, and then you got out and went into practice. Tell us about your first job.
My first job straight out of residency was working for the World Trade Center Monitoring and Treatment Program, which treats the first responders at 9/11 that have medical sequelae. That includes, all kinds of ear, nose, and throat issues and gastrointestinal issues and mental health issues. And it was at Mount Sinai in New York City. So I was commuting from where we were living at that time, which is Riverdale in the Bronx. Yeah. And it was a great job that I stayed at for 5 years before I actually made my first transition when I became pregnant with my 3rd child and decided to take a hiatus from medicine.
Mm-hmm. what prompted you to start looking for like the side hustle or the social media docs? What was the inciting event?
Right. So the inciting event was taking that first step away when I took my pregnancy leave with my third child, when I gave birth to him. Initially, I took the time off. I decided I wanted to focus on being a mom. I decided that I actually wanted to bond with my other children because I felt like I wasn't the best mom that I could be because I was so focused on becoming a physician and doing that really arduous path and the journey that you're familiar with. But it turned out that I was the same mom in the beginning and at the end of that leave because you're just a good mom, regardless of if you're working or not working. But what did happen was that I did a lot of self-discoveries and self-exploration and came out really passionate about learning more that was non-medical. I realized during my time away that there was so much more to life that I just hadn't paid attention to because we're just following this really straight and narrow path and you're not really allowed or you don't really allow yourself to deviate. And so letting myself have that freedom and actually cutting ties with medicine temporarily allowed me to have that freedom, that exploration that really made me more into the creative human that I appreciate being today.
And so you took these lessons and then it was your first thought to do the social media, the marketing for doctors, or how did you
No.
go from there to there?
Yeah. So I began just exploring things that I guess non-medical people sometimes take for granted, things like cooking and baking and designing and even entertaining, making friends, entertaining friends. And I loved it. It just made me feel so creative and I could really express myself in ways that I just hadn't before. And then eventually it turned into writing and into blogging. Blogging specifically, I took up because it just seemed like such a cool way to express myself. And I also saw that so many people were doing it in this country and doctors weren't. So it intrigued me just how much doctors could maybe fit into this expressive medium. And it turns out I really enjoyed it. And so that sort of led me into social media. I wanted to write more. I wanted to write a book. And there was a conference. It was actually a Harvard Medical School's healthcare social media and writing for healthcare professionals. And the person in charge of it, Dr. Julie Silver, who I'm so thankful for, she took a note of my talents, my social media and content creation talents. And she actually invited me in as guest faculty. And so I was lucky to be there for the following few years as faculty, really consulting with people on their social media presence. But that's where I learned from the actual publishers that your book will not be picked up realistically unless you've got a really large social media following. And that was really why I went back into social media, which I had really stayed away from for the most part, just like every other doctor does. But that's why I went back into social media and really gave it a go and decided to really just increase my activity, increase my followers and become creative there. And then everything sort of snowballed from there. I started to teach doctors that that's what they needed to do. And then I started to just become more proficient at website building and content creation and social media and strategy. And now I lead a very large platform that aims to help doctors do the same and then indirectly to promote their autonomy.
I didn't know the snowball aspect to your story, but that's pretty insane that one thing led to the other so tremendously like it did for you.
Yeah.
I looked through your website and it looks like your mantra is that you say marketing is missing from medicine. What do you mean by that? And what's an example of medicine marketing that's working really well?
Right. So the marketing that's missing, it ties in with the whole idea of needing more autonomy. So the way I look at it is that the doctor in the healthcare equation is the superstar. For the sake of simplicity, we'll say that because obviously it's a whole team and there's other superstars. But right now I am representing the doctor, right? I almost serve as the doctor's agent. the doctor is the superstar. But what happens is that we've got these big conglomerates, these big health systems that are now buying out our practices because of many reasons I'm not going to go into for those that say, well, you shouldn't let them buy it. Well, sometimes we don't have an option, but okay. These big systems are purchasing us. And what happens is that you get swallowed by the large system and your identity sort of gets taken over. And what results from that is that the big system will continually market the big system. They will use you, understandably, but while you are employed, they will use you to market themselves. Well, that results in great marketing for them. But the second you either leave or are fired, you can't take that marketing with you. You can't take that enthusiasm and that love that patients have for you. You can't take that with you to your new job. So what I do is I teach doctors this concept, and I teach them that the solution is in physician branding, because the online world affords us that, and we can build a brand that we can market. Right. So now we're marketing ourselves, and it actually indirectly markets the hospital. So they should be happy that you're doing it. And of course, everything needs to be done legally. And then the second you either leave or they fire you, those fans will follow you no matter where you are, because it's the online world. I actually just had a discussion that I posted on SoMeDocs on doctorsonsocialmedia.com with Dr. Ashley Saucier. And I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing her name, but she tells her story about being wrongfully fired. She's an pediatric ER doctor, and she was wrongfully fired. And now she's sort of left going, well, now what? And that's what branding can afford us, is that you can now, when you're fired, you can do so many new things and your identity remains yours. All of the people that have followed you until then can follow you no matter what you do next. So she's kind of exploring the idea of becoming a coach for families, because she's been doing it for a while and she's written a bunch of books that are now featured in our book section. But branding has afforded her the ability to do exactly what the publisher said at Harvard Medical School, which is to build an audience. And then once you have that audience, you really can birth anything, any entrepreneurial venture, any, nonprofit or whatever it is that you want to do.
You hear so many stories nowadays about hospitals or big health systems wrongfully firing physicians. And those people just become, oh, that's the guy that got fired. That's the lady that got fired. But with your strategy, you are not the person that got fired. You're the person that, hey, I've got this platform and I'm showing, I advocate for patients. This is my platform for this, and you can take that anywhere you go. So that's incredible. And I applaud you for doing that. So let's talk about SoMeDocs. Like, what's the elevator pitch for SoMeDocs? Why should a physician sign up with you?
Right. So a physician should sign up with us because if you practice in the States and you have an NPI number, it's really a no-brainer. We have a free membership option. The free membership option gets you into our public directory. The directory is just a very unique public listing of doctors and what they sort of do on the side. It's really unique because there's cool filters to use. It's, again, free after vetting. You have 30 days to build a profile in order to stay and keep it free. And then you have it free for the rest of the time. And the directory helps to facilitate connections between the rest of the world, especially the entrepreneurial world, and doctors. So, for example, media, reporters, events looking for speakers, startups looking for advisors, podcasts looking for guests, patients looking for a doctor to follow online, another doctor looking to collaborate with someone. These are all people that are looking and they don't know where to look, right? Because we used to use PR agencies, but those cost so much money. Now I basically take out the middleman and I say, hey, these are the experts in healthcare. They've been vetted. They're medical doctors, dentists, podiatrists. It says exactly what you are with your degree. And now reporters don't have to wonder whether you're an expert. So I've had, the Wall Street Journal use it just the other day, a reporter from there. And I have a company that reached out and is telling me that they've hired a bunch of advisors thanks to the directory. But that's just one of the things that we do. The goal, like I said, is to promote autonomy. So what we do is I've built tools that a doctor can use to, first of all, brainstorm through their own brand. What should I build in terms of my brand? Well, come on in and let's talk. And then additionally, I've built tools to help you actually be amplified. So we have a magazine. So we have that directory. We have directories that showcase beyond exam rooms. So doctors' podcasts, doctors as speakers, doctors as coaches, doctor books and blogs, communities. And the point is to organize it very much like a beautiful library where someone from the outside can publicly come to the site and just pick a book that a doctor's written and even use the filters for what they need. So if a family wants a book for families, they could just click the families filter and those books come up. And then furthermore, we actually market. So we will market every page that's published on our site. So if there's a magazine, for the articles in our magazine, we publish and circulate those articles on our social media platforms. So that has well over 40,000 followers, and we have an email list. And so doctors that are coming on are really using it, and they're growing their own brands by our circulating them. Even though we're not their specific marketing agency, we're sort of a collective solution for the doctors of today. And then there's our network, which is a paid membership for the doctors that sort of want more than that. And we get to really sort of get to know one another. We have pods on social media platforms to help us increase our reach and get to know one another, give ourselves advice. We have networking sessions and an incubator, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow. So it's the one-stop shop for the doc looking for a creative outlet.
Absolutely. And we also have Facebook communities. A new one specifically is actually open to any doctor out there. So you don't even need to be a member of SoMe and it's called Doctor Side Ventures. And I'm hoping with simple rules that we really can facilitate networking in just the right way with the transparency that our profession needs.
What's a success story that you're particularly proud of from SoMe Docs?
I have many. I mean, I can think of Robert Saul that just got a paper published on the New York Times. I can think of Dr. Susan Baumgirtel, who just published a book. I can think of so many of the podcasters that have built collaborations with people through SoMe and have basically reciprocated visibility. But there's others. There's, Cara Wada, who is not only building her own conferences, but actually, thanks to the directory, got an advising position in a startup. The opportunities are countless, and they're not even always reported back to us. I just know that I'm starting to hear back from some people, and it just makes me feel good, like what I'm doing is fruitful.
All right, I'm going to get to my thank you note to you, Donna. And it goes like this. It says, Dear Donna, thank you for your life of service to helping fellow physicians. I know it must have been difficult for you to leave bedside medicine, but through your example and assistance, you are helping physicians to practice both medicine and their side hustles on their terms, rather than having them dictated to them. There's a great awakening happening in medicine, and you're at the forefront. Thanks for coming on, Travis.
Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
It's hard enough for us to do all this, and it's hard enough to do a side hustle. For you to help us do both is, we need more people like you.
Thank you. I appreciate it very, very much.
All right, now, Donna, you said you brought a thank you note in. Tell us who you wrote it to.
Yeah. So I recently in April of this year, I published a book compilation with 30 plus women physicians and their short stories brought to you by women physicians. And it's called What We Bring to the Practice of Medicine. And I actually wrote my thank you note to my partner in crime, Dr. Kimberly Green Leibowitz. And I want to also thank every woman physician out there who has contributed to the book and to the promotion of this book. But here's what I wrote to Kim. Dear Kim, they say it takes two to tango. In our case, it certainly did. Because as much as I wanted to piece together our compilation, nothing would have likely come to fruition if I hadn't gotten on the phone with you that one random evening many years ago. I remember it to this day. I told you how emotional I had gotten reading your story, and you asked me lots of questions I just didn't know. And then, yada, 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 which of course doesn't accurately reflect the countless man hours poured into the creation of our book. We had ourselves a baby, a book. Looking back now, I'm so glad that you hopped along on this book project. I not only gained a Superwoman co-author, I gained a friend. Here's to more tango. Here's to success. So that's my thank you note to Kim. But I also thank you.
Shout out to Kim.
Yeah. Shout out to her, ER doctor from Westchester. And also just now that, I'm doing it off the cuff, thank you to you for building such a creative podcast and for inviting me on.
Of course. It's been an honor talking to you. All right, I have one last question. You said that on your site that you love inspirational anythings. What is your favorite inspirational quote?
Oh, that's a hard one because I have to literally quote it the right way, because I'm thinking of the quote by Albert Einstein, which I can't reproduce word for word, but I could just give the gist, and it really—
Let's just paraphrase.
Exactly.
It's podcasting. It's dirty.
Exactly. I love that. So the quote basically says that when you do something again and again and again, that's where you sort of don't see change. You have to really just do something a little different to make a difference. It's something to that degree, but it so speaks to what I'm doing now, because I believe there's just not enough innovation in healthcare. And the only way we can innovate is by actually forcing ourselves out of those traditional norms and doing something that we're not comfortable with. So Albert Einstein is the source of incredible quotes. I just can't think of it now off the cuff, but I'm going to memorize one from now on, just in case someone asks me in the future.
I was actually going to swap quotes with you. And the one that I keep off the cuff is loyalty to petrified opinion never once broke a chain or freed a human soul and never will.
Oh, I love that. That is so the same as what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm. That's Mark Twain.
I love it. And that's what I really want to see happen in medicine, is that we are so, we have such a sort of boxed way of thinking, and we're just a very herd mentality in general. I would like to see us kind of step out of the box and be a little bit more open-minded as to what we can bring into medicine and healthcare to just make it a more warm place to both practice in and come and get healed in.
I think there's an epidemic of, well, this is the way we've always done it, and I had to go through it, so you have to go through it. And you're seeing now that residents, I'm not going to live in San Francisco making $30,000 a year. I can't do it. I'm not going to work these horrible hours. And,
Totally.
It's just so this hospital can make money.
Totally.
And, people are, I don't want to work for this insurance company. I'm opening a boutique practice. I'm opening cash only. So it's starting to happen.
Yeah. And I'll just add one last thing, that when I left medicine, I was asked by Medscape to write an article about it. And I was given certain directions. So I did. And I took their angle, which wasn't my choice, but doesn't matter. I wrote an article, and it was met with both a lot of support, but also a lot of criticism. And the criticism came from my colleagues. And I remember at the time, I was much more sensitive than I am today. And I really took it to heart, because in my heart, I was thinking, well, I'm leaving medicine because the system's broken. Many of you are sitting and complaining about healthcare, but aren't doing anything about it. And so I felt very frustrated. I understood where they were coming from, but I also felt very frustrated that someone had stood up and said enough, and said, I'm not only leaving, but I'm going to build tools to help doctors sort of gain their autonomy and gain back the respect. And yet here I'm getting all of this criticism. And clearly it was obvious that they just did not understand what I was planning to do. But it's just another example of how boxed in we are, that we need to criticize someone who's leaving instead of saying, okay, now lead us to change.
They hate us because they ain't us.
That's right.
No, I get it. Well, yeah. Donna, it's been a pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope to see more beautiful things coming from SoMe Docs in the future.
Thank you, and likewise from your podcast.
Side note, I recorded this episode while I was on vacation. My Wi-Fi was really crummy, and I kept jumping in and out of the call, and it was laggy and delays, et cetera, et cetera. Donna was a total pro, and I want to thank her for being such a great sport. Check out SoMe Docs. There's a directory you can get in for free, like she said. I've been in there. I've been meeting some nice people, and some of whom will be on the podcast in the future. Also follow Donna on Instagram and LinkedIn. She's huge on LinkedIn. She's always posting stuff, and it gets a lot of attention. Links to all that will be in the show notes. Please like, rate, and review this show and get the word out. Write some thank you notes, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.